Ghosts of Tsushima is one of the most iconic games on the PlayStation 4. The story takes place in feudal Japan, where we follow the adventure of a samurai slowly turning into a ninja to save his island from the Mongols. I'm Camile Salazar-Hadaway, and today we're going through 107 facts about Ghosts of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima follows the adventure of Jin Sakai, one of the last samurai left on the island of Tsushima after the first Mongol invasion of Japan in 1274. This story is based on real events. In 1274, Kublai Khan, leader of the Yuan dynasty, tried to conquer the Japanese archipelago during the first of two Mongol invasions. In the game, Kublai Khan sends his cousin Khodan to lead the Mongol forces in Tsushima. Khodan Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, is the main antagonist of Ghost of Tsushima. However, unlike his cousin and grandfather, Khodan Khan never existed in real life. Koto Khan has the same Japanese voice as Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Bruce Willis, George Clooney, and Hugh Jackman. Tsutomu Isobe is behind all of these voices and has also dubbed King Regis Lucas Caleb 113 in Final Fantasy XV. The English voice actor of Koto Khan, Patrick Gallagher, played Attila the Hun in the Night at the Museum movie series and the video game adaptation.
So I'll ask you once again, Samurai. Do you surrender?
The first battle in Ghost of Tsushima is a reproduction of real battles that happened in 1274. The Mongols came to conquer Japan, starting with the islands of Tsushima and Iki. They killed the Japanese forces before moving on to their next target. Jin Sakai and his uncle, Lord Shimura, are fictional characters set in this context. If the ghost is the one repelling the Mongol troops from Tsushima in the game, it didn't exactly happen the same way in real life. The Mongols managed to capture the island of Iki in Tsushima and headed for Kyushu, the third largest island of Japan. But the samurais were waiting for them, and the Battle of Bunye began. What ended the battle was not the intervention of Jin Sakai's allies, but a huge typhoon which sank most of the Mongol fleets. The Japanese called the typhoon a kamikaze, which means divine wind. Giving a nod to the real story of the island of Tsushima, Sucker Punch hid a small detail on Jin's sword. His katana features storm and wind designs, a direct reference to the hurricane that helped defeat the Mongols. Since the story is inspired by real events, the map we play in Ghost of Tsushima is based on the real island of Tsushima in Japan. Tsushima Island is situated halfway between Kyushu and the Korean peninsula. The island is a strategic entry point to Japan and played a major role in protecting the archipelago from continental threats. In feudal Japan, Tsushima was also an important trade center and one of the major bases of Japanese pirates. Arr. Besides war and money, Tsushima Island is popular for something cuter. Cats. The Tsushima leopard cat is a wild cat that is about the same size as a domestic cat. However, the species is now endangered due to a lack of natural habitat and diseases carried by domestic cats. Tsushima cats are being bred in captivity in 5 zoos around Japan. Back to samurais. Jin Sakai is a katana master, wielding his samurai sword on the battlefield. However, samurais in 1274 mainly used bows and not swords. The bow was the symbol of the professional warrior, and their way of life was referred to as the way of the horse and bow. Katanas became popular among samurais during the Edo period, about 400 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima. When samurais needed a sword, they used a tachi. This weapon slightly differs from the katana, with a more pronounced curve and a longer blade. The Japanese version of Ghost of Tsushima often refers to Jin's blade as his tachi, while the English version prefers the word katana. Jin has 2 bows, a half bow and a long bow. The half bow is a traditional samurai weapon that Sensei Ishikawa gave to Jin. The long bow is a more powerful weapon, more useful to Jin as he embraces the way of the ghost. To make fights as realistic as possible, Sucker Punch invited 2 real-life samurais to help them with their research, Kiwami Masakumo and Ide Ryusetsu from the Shen Ryu Dojo. They provided their experience of samurai fights to help Jin Sakai come to life. Speaking of Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima was not their first project, and PlayStation players may already know the studio. Sucker Punch Productions is the company behind Infamous and Sly Cooper. In August 2011, 2011, Sony acquired Sucker Punch, making all of its games PlayStation exclusives. Following the release of infamous Second Son in 2014, Sucker Punch started working on their next project. The team wanted to create an open-world game with a large emphasis on melee combat. After considering themes such as pirates, Scottish folk heroes, and a steampunk medieval setting, the team settled for a game set in feudal Japan. Ghost of Tsushima was born. There is no minimap in Ghost of Tsushima to stay true to the minimalist, uncluttered Japanese design. To find points of interest in Ghost of Tsushima, you have to look around for columns of smoke, foxes, or birds. If the main story of Ghost of Tsushima is meant for a single player, Sucker Punch always wanted to incorporate a cooperative mode. They did so with Legends on October 16, 2020. Legends is free for owners of Ghost of Tsushima. It includes 2-player story missions and 4-player survival missions. Legends features 9 story chapters and 1 3-part raid. Each mission has 4 difficulty levels: Bronze, Silver, Gold, and Nightmare. Gyozen is the link between the solo experience of Ghost of Tsushima and its multiplayer mode, Legends. He tells parts of stories when we meet him, depending on Jin's current location. Greg Baldwin voices the English version of Gyozen. He worked on several other projects, giving his voice to Uncle Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. The Japanese voice actor of Gyozen, Tomomichi Nishimura, also voices the third Tsuchikage, Onoki, in Naruto Shippuden.
かつて対馬の降ることを記した
Alongside Legends, Sucker Punch revealed a new solo mode for Ghost of Tsushima, New Game Plus. Players can keep all of the techniques, gears, and vanity items obtained in a previous playthrough. The difficulty is increased to provide a new challenge. New Game Plus features a new horse with red mane and saddle. It also includes new charms and upgrades for Jin's sword and armor. The goal of New Game Plus is to discover the island of Tsushima, even if you already completed the game. Completing a quest for a second time unlocks Ghost Flowers, a currency used to buy new vanity looks. Following the success of Ghost of Tsushima, game director Nate Fox and creative director Jason Connell became permanent tourism ambassadors of the real Tsushima Island in Japan. Ryuzu, the leader of the Straw Hats, wear a distinctive hat. His Ronin Gaza, a straw hat with a flat top, is the hat worn by Ronins, samurais without a lord or master. As you wander through the island of Tsushima, random events can occur. You may, for instance, witness animal hunts or Mongols robbing a resident. The leaves we could see in the game are photo scans of real leaves from Tsushima Island. The photo mode of Ghost of Tsushima offers many options to play with. You could select the direction of the wind to make Jin's cape fly, adjust the light and shadows, change the weather, or use a different camera lens. Pausing the game with photo mode doesn't freeze the environment. Wind will still blow, and the leaves will keep on flying. You could take quick videos in photo mode to create a cinematic shot of the nature of Tsushima. The photo mode has a tracking shot option to film a path across the environment. Press X to select a location, repeat up to 16 times, and hit triangle to see the camera smoothly swap between these directions. The first time gamers heard of Ghost of Tsushima was in 2017 during Paris Game Week. The first trailer showed a samurai in Tsushima 1274.
You are a warrior. I can see that. You trained your whole life for this.
To create the world of Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch looked for inspiration in manga and movies. Among their inspirations are Lone Wolf and Cub, Usagi Yojimbo, as well as Akira Kurosawa's movies Seven Samurai and Sanjuro. Akira Kurosawa has such an impact on Ghost of Tsushima that an entire mode is dedicated to his cinematic art. The Kurosawa mode will turn the game into a black and white throwback reminiscent of old Japanese movies. The Kurosawa mode is more than a simple black and white light filter. Art director Jason Connell analyzed samurai scenes in movies to see how dark the blacks were and how bright the whites were depending on the time of day and weather conditions. The Kurosawa mode also adds a film grain effect and alters the audio to sound like an old recording from the 1950s. The wind is also stronger in Kurosawa mode. The duels in Ghost of Tsushima, when Jin walks up to his enemies, is inspired by Kurosawa's movie Senjuro. The final scene of the game is also similar to the end of the movie, but we won't spoil it for you if you haven't finished the game yet. You could choose which enemy to fight in the standoff by targeting them prior to starting the duel. It can be useful to defeat tough opponents like brutes or leaders. Killing a Mongol leader helps Jin unlock new combat stances, but if you wait a little and observe the leader from afar, you could also unlock a point toward the next stance. Kill them after watching them for 2 points instead of 1. Other video games also inspired Sucker Punch when they created Ghost of Tsushima. Their artistic inspiration branched from The Shadow of the Colossus to Red Dead Redemption and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. 3 days after its release, Ghost of Tsushima is the fastest-selling original IP on PlayStation 4, shipping over 2.4 million units in 3 days. Playing the flute is one of Jin's favorite hobbies, but did you know that it could change the weather? When Jin plays the song from start to finish, the in-game weather will change. Singing crickets unlock new songs, each changing the weather in a different way. The map in Ghost of Tsushima is bigger than the one in Spider-Man PS4, but smaller than the world of Skyrim. Tsushima's total square area is roughly 28.62 square kilometers, or 11.02 square miles. The map is divided into 3 regions with over 40 different biomes and hundreds of points of interest. The weather in Ghost of Tsushima changes as Jin Sakai leaves the path of samurai to embrace the power of the ghost. If Jin decides to disregard the code of samurai and kill enemies stealthily, then storms will break out more often on Tsushima.
I am samurai. No, you are more than that. You are the ghost.
Sword combat is at the core of Ghost of Tsushima and leads to a fair amount of bloodshed. Depending on how Jin stabs his opponents, blood splatters will fly in different directions. Slashing an enemy upwards will send blood in the air, while stabbing an enemy in the chest will make blood splatter behind him. If Jin can direct blood splatters depending on his attack, he cannot target specific body parts. Enemies can get dismembered, but you cannot chop off their head or cut their legs on purpose. The amount of blood on Jin's armor depends on the fight length. Killing a single enemy might leave a few blood droplets on Jin. Fighting an entire Mongol army is messier, and Jin will end up covered in blood and mud. Before sheathing his weapon, Jin always makes sure his katana is clean. If he single-handedly wiped out an entire Mongol camp, he would wipe off the blood before putting his sword back into its scabbard. There are several animations to remove the blood from Jin's weapon. For instance, he could make a flickering motion to get rid of the blood, or wipe off the blood on his arm sleeve. Jin can also clean his sword and clothes by taking a dip in any body of water, like the sea or a hot spring. Running through bushes on a rainy day will also clean Jin's armor, as the leaves will clear the mud. In Ghost of Tsushima, Mongol archers always scream before firing their arrows. They yell "Dushu" to warn their allies before shooting, which could be translated to get down or crouch down. Fox dens are always located at yellow trees buzzing with fireflies or butterflies. In the English version of Ghost of Tsushima, Lady Masako Adachi shares her voice with several popular heroes. Lauren Tom gives her voice to Masako and also voiced Amy Wong in Futurama and Dana Tan in Batman Beyond. She even played in Friends as Julie, Ross Geller's girlfriend, on Season 2. Despite being set in Japan, most characters of Ghost of Tsushima are physically played by their English voice actors, who did the motion capture. There are 3 levels of difficulty in Ghost of Tsushima: easy, medium, and hard. No matter which difficulty you select, enemies will have the same health to maintain the historical accuracy of fights. The main differences between the difficulty levels are the aggressiveness of enemies and the time frame to perform special moves. During the development of Ghost of Tsushima, testers reported that hitting enemies felt like fighting with a foam sword. players requested a lethality contract to make the game realistic. Sucker Punch then added a maximum hits to kill for all enemies, no matter the difficulty level. To increase the difficulty of fights without changing enemy HP, Sucker Punch added several behaviors to Jin's enemy. When their health is low, they will parry and block attacks more often. Jin can break their defense, but other enemies have time to hit Jin while he breaks a shield. Stances help Jin overcome harder enemies. There are a total of 4 stances: Stone, Water, Wind, and Moon. Each stance is powerful against a specific type of opponent. The golden birds are guiding Jin throughout Tsushima to discover the best points of interest. The birds can lead Jin to haiku spots, hot springs, enemy camps, or side missions. If the birds are annoying you, don't waste your time shooting them. Arrows or any other attack won't hit the golden birds. Jin can wear various masks across his journey. However, masks that cover only part of the phase appeared in Japan during the Muromachi era between 1333 and 1573. As Ghosts of Tsushima is set in 1274, Jin is a little ahead of his time wearing his samurai mask. In September 2020, a typhoon damaged a Shinto torii gate on the island of Tsushima. One of the priests at the shrine launched a crowdfunding campaign to restore the torii gate, and fans of Ghosts of Tsushima didn't miss the call. Out of the 5 million yen required to restore the gate, fans raised over 27 million yen, or 542% of the initial goal. In November 2020, TBS aired the 1576th episode of Sakai Fushigi Haken, a popular Japanese variety TV show. This episode was dedicated to exploring the real island of Tsushima, featuring locations that showed up in the game. Sony Pictures and PlayStation Productions are currently working on a film adaptation of the game. Chad Stahelski, director of the John Wick series, will be directing the Ghost of Tsushima movie. There are a total of 3 million trees in the game, spread all over the island of Tsushima. The Japan audio team of Sucker Punch recorded the birds and deers we hear in the game. Takashi Okazaki, the manga artist behind the Afro Samurai series, created 4 original drawings based on Ghost of Tsushima. Each artwork represents a part of Jin's story: the wind that guides him, the flames that destroy his home around him, the mask he wears as he becomes the ghost, and the wrath as he fights back against the Mongols. Picking up flowers allows Jin to dye his armor. Purple flowers also replenish poison darts, while orange flowers refill hallucination darts. Haiku spots are visible from afar, as songbirds fly in circles above them. As he fights his way through Mongol troops, Jin gathers resolve he could use to either restore some health or carry out a fatal blow on his opponents. Whether to use resolve offensively or defensively is entirely up to the player. Mongols sometimes have eagle companions with them, taking care of them since they hatched. If Jin kills a Mongol but leaves the eagle alive, he will land near the corpse and warn his master before flying away. Throughout the game, foxes lead Jin to hidden shrines. There are a total of 49 shrines to discover on the island of Tsushima. If you're looking for a hot spring, check for steam floating in the air. All hot springs are near a red maple tree. One regular question when a game comes out is, can you pet the dog? In Ghost of Tsushima, you could pet the fox. It wasn't a feature at first, but the employees of Sucker Punch found the foxes cute and asked to add a petting feature. In the first 10 days after the launch of Ghost of Tsushima, players pet foxes over 8.8 million times. Across the island of Tsushima, there are 10 hidden altars where Jin can honor the fallen. Bowing to these altars trigger a special animation in the environment, lightning striking the ground, or a fish jumping out of the water. The game often shows a wooden sign where you should bow. There are also a few Easter eggs you can unlock by bowing. For instance, bowing to a frog statue on the Isonade Coast island summons a swarm of frogs. Jin can bow anytime in the game, and doing so sometimes unlocks specific voice lines. Bowing to a dead body, like a fallen samurai, or even a boar, will have Jin pay his respects and say a few words. As Ghost of Tsushima is a Sucker Punch game, there are many references to their prior work. For instance, the Crooked Comma headband is a reference to Sly Cooper, and the Band of the Second Sun is a direct nod to the latest Infamous game. Jin could wear a full cosplay of Sly Cooper by combining the Crooked Comma Kodama headband and the Sly Tanuki sword kit while wearing the Gosaku armor in the Ocean Guardian color scheme. This will unlock a hidden trophy called Cooper Clan Cosplay. There is no karma system in Ghosts of Tsushima. No matter if Jin chooses the path of the samurai or embraces the way of the ghosts, his legend will still carry on.
Never seen a samurai fight like that.
It was nothing.
You're more than a samurai. He is a vengeful spirit.
The game's music is composed by Ian Ishikiri and Shigeru Ombayashi. Ishikiri previously worked on The Sims 4, while Ombayashi made the music of In the Mood for Love, a Palme d'Or contestant at the Cannes Film Festival. Composers Ishikiri and Ombayashi only had 18 months to create an entire musical universe around 13th century Japan. To increase the realism of music, they incorporated notes of biwa, a Japanese flute that samurai used to play. While creating the soundtrack to Ghosts of Tsushima, the composers had to figure out new instruments. While using taiko drums, they unintentionally created rude music by combining the wrong sets of notes together. Japanese taiko players noticed, and Sucker Punch quickly changed the notes. Ian Ishikiri created 2 ending versions of the last battle of Ghost of Tsushima music. Depending on how the fight goes, the game plays one musical ending or the other to empathize with Jin's feelings. When Sucker Punch began the testing phase of Ghost of Tsushima, most testers did not have time to go through the main plot in a week. The Japanese voice actor of Jin is Kazuya Nakai. His voice may sound familiar to some of you, as he is also the voice actor for Roronoa Zoro in One Piece and Toshiro Hijikata from Gintama. You may also have heard of him as Shinjiro Aragaki from Persona, Mugen from Samurai Champloo, or Mondo Owada from Danganronpa. Jin is not the only one who shares his voice with a One Piece character. Shimura is Blackbeard, Khan is Douglas Bullet, Taka is Usopp, and Ishikawa is Buggy. The English voice actor of Jin Sakai is Daisuke Tsuji. He was the voice actor of the musician in Death Stranding. Daisuke Tsuji is also more than a voice actor, playing as the Crown Prince in The Man in the High Castle and making appearances on The Blacklist, Brockmire, and Love, Death, and Robots. Smoke on the Horizon leads to villages or Mongol settlements. Going there can lead to side quests, experience points, and craft resources. For Latin American Spanish players, Ghost of Tsushima is the first game with a dub recorded entirely in Argentina. When Jin enters a building, there's a short animation of him sliding in and closing the door behind him. You could skip that by slicing the door, even though villagers might not be too happy about it. After Act 1, you could even kill Mongols through the door. Attract an enemy with a wind chime, wait for him to get close to the door, and pierce through both the door and the Mongol with your katana. The English voice actor of Yoona, Sumali Montano, used to work as an investment bank analyst before starting her acting career. She has been providing her voice to video game characters since 1999, in various genres ranging from The Sims to Diablo 3, The Outer Worlds, and Fallout 4. She is also the voice of the President in Saints Row 4. In the Japanese version of the game, Yoona shares the same voice actor as Aunt May from the 2012 TV show Ultimate Spider-Man. Yu Mizuno is behind both characters and provided additional voices for Kingdom Hearts 3 and Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13.
あんたってやつはひどい男だね。
Jin gets new sets of armor as he progresses through his story. Helmets and body armor can be freely combined to create the look of your choice. In the first 10 days after Ghost of Tsushima's launch, players already spent the equivalent of over 810 years riding horses in the game. When you begin your adventure in Tsushima, the map is covered by a fog of war. You could either run everywhere to discover the zone, or clear every Mongol camp in the area to automatically remove the fog of war. During his journey, Jin can stop and reflect on his life by writing a haiku. There are a total of 19 haikus, rewarding you with cosmetic headbands. While Jin can write poems, haikus did not exist back in 1274. Moreover, they have to follow a 575 syllable format, which Jin does not respect. In the Japanese version of the game, the word haiku is replaced with waka, which means poem. When Jin finds a pillar of honor for the first time, nearby animals like frogs, crabs, or fireflies may come and pay their respects to the fallen ones. The path of the ghost is similar to the way of the ninja. However, the term did not exist in Japan until the 15th century. The Japanese audio of the game does refer to the path of the ghost as actions of a shinobi. Ghosts of Tsushima is one of the last major games released on the PS4 and included some Easter eggs to remind of the greatest games of the console. After the end credits, you could find some of these Easter eggs in Jin's house. There are a dozen origami pieces on a low table, representing games like Gran Turismo Sport, Horizon Zero Dawn, Shadow of Colossus, and The Last of Us Part 2. An enhanced version of the game, called Ghosts of Tsushima Director's Cut, will come out on August 20th, 2021. It will feature additional content as well as a new island to discover, Iki. Alongside the Director's Cut, the original Ghosts of Tsushima will feature an update with new accessibility options as well as a lock-on feature during combat. And that's a wrap on 107 facts about Ghosts of Tsushima. Like this video if you learned anything new about Jin's story, and make sure to subscribe to the Leaderboard for more facts about your favorite video games.